Hello and welcome to the Whimsy Stamps channel. Lisa here with another card making tutorial for you. I must say I am super excited about today's video and I hope you walk away feeling the same. Now in this video I want to share 3 techniques using the new Slimline Shamrock background die with you, but you could easily use Whimsy Stamps Slimline Star or heart background dies with these techniques. So my first step is to grab my micro pattern stamp set. I'm going to be using that micro plaid stamp from that set. We're going to use a Misty and white cardstock, 4.5 inches wide by 8.5 inches long, placed in the Misty. I'm using VersaFine Claire Shady Lane ink. Any green ink you have will work. I do want to mention that you want to use a heavier weight cardstock with this. We're really going to be putting this one piece of cardstock through the wringer during the video, you'll see, and a heavier cardstock is going to hold up better for you. So let's go ahead and stamp that micro pattern from top to bottom on our 4 by 8.5 inch cardstock panel. Don't aim for perfection with this. You just want to make sure there's no gaps in between each stamping of that pattern. If it overlaps some, it's perfectly fine because by the time we get through with this, you're never going to see that overlapping. I'm going to go ahead and flip that panel around and hit the tail end of this. Like I said, we want all of our shamrocks to be plaid, so we want to make sure we have that panel covered from top to bottom. So we're going to run this through the die cutting machine now, and I have a Swiffer laid down on top of my cutting mat, and then we'll place the stamped panel down and then the die on top of that, secure it in place with a piece of Scotch removable tape. Run it through your machine and then go ahead and remove the die and excess paper. Don't disturb any of the rest of the die cutting. So the Swiffer helps hold everything down while you're removing your die. And then we can take a piece of masking tape or paper and run across that die cut piece, and it's going to hold all of our pieces in place while we put mounting foam on the back side of those stamped shamrocks. So here I have a 3-inch by 8-inch piece of Nina Desert Storm cardstock, and I'm using Whimsy's shiplap stamp to create a background for our shamrocks. So I just stamped this up with some VersaFine Claire Pinecone ink and then lay the panel down and run my hand across it over a piece of scrap paper, and then it stamps it perfect. So now that we have our background ready, we've removed all of the release paper from the back of our foam adhesive squares that we've added to the back side of our shamrocks. We're lining this stamped panel up on the back side and pressing down firmly, making sure we're picking up all of the shamrocks. We're going to flip the whole die cut piece over, remove the masking paper, and then gently remove the negative piece from our shamrocks. And you can see there how it's left all those shamrocks behind on that shiplap panel. And we're going to set that aside for now while we focus on this negative piece. Now remember me telling you it didn't really matter if you had some overlapping and the thicker lines once you were stamping that plaid pattern, because what we're going to do now is we're going to take this piece and we're going to do some stenciling with it. So we have some pixie spray here. This is just a low tack spray adhesive that you use on stencils. You can use it for other things as well. So we're going to spray the back of this and treat it like a stencil. And I'm going to do an A2 card base. I have that laid out here in front of me. I'm laying my makeshift stencil down on the bottom side of that A2 card. And I've covered up that top part with some masking paper just to protect it while I'm ink blending. I do tend to get a little bit crazy when I'm doing this. So I'm grabbing some Distress Oxides. I'm starting with black soot on the bottom, and we're going to work our way up through some greens and do like an ombre effect with this. So I'm coming in with Forest Moss. That's going to be the darkest green that I use. Then we're going to work our way into Peeled Paint. We're going to stop here with the blending and we'll lift our stencil up. turn it around, place it back down to finish stenciling this whole A2 card front. So I picked back up with the Shabby Shutters ink, but I do want to tell you, you might want to take your time and mask off below your makeshift stencil. If you're like me and you get into that ink blending and then you lose track of what you're doing because you're so into it, um, it's safe. It's better to be safe than sorry, right? So we'll go ahead and finish this off with Shabby Shutters and old paper. So let's go ahead and do a quick reveal. I love the way this background turned out. I love that ombre look. And I know there in the center, you can see that little bit of a line there. That's not a big deal. We're going to come in and put our sentiment right there in the center. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take all of those same colors of ink and we're going to finish blending over this background. And I wasn't playing when I told you we were going to put this piece of cardstock through the ringer today, but I love that I'm getting so much use out of one 4 by 8 inch piece of cardstock. So I went ahead and I blended over that entire background, and the plaid is showing through that Distress Oxide ink and it looks amazing. So here I have Whimsy Stamps stitched and, or excuse me, pierced and stitched circle dies. We're going to use the 3¼ inch die. We're cutting 2 circles out of our leftover background. So while I have the 3¼ inch round die here, I went ahead and ran it through my die cutting machine with some acetate because one of these is going to be a shaker card. We also need to create 2 frames. So we're using that 3¼ and the 3-inch die to create a black frame there. And we're going to use some liquid adhesive to go ahead and add these on top because we need to give it a nice finished look around the edges, and this black cardstock frame is going to do that for us. So here I'm adding some tiny little dots of glue to the back side, and I also went around the edge so that I could add my piece of acetate to the back side of this piece because, like I said, we are going to have a shaker card made from one of these. Okay, so you would just let these dry before you actually put those on your cards. Now, because this video is based on those 3 must-try techniques, I'm not actually going to walk you through the whole process of putting the cards together, but I do want to give you some quick details on how I finished them off. This is the first card we started with. There's the plaid shamrocks on that shiplap background, and I layered those onto brown cardstock and then a white card base. I added a round die cut piece out of brown cardstock to pop that cute little leprechaun up off of there, and then added a sentiment to that. Now that little leprechaun is from the new St. Paddy's Shenanigans 4x6 clear stamp set that is available in the shop. And I used a comic speech bubble die for my sentiment. But I love the way this one turned out. And the next card is our stenciled background. This is an A2 card, and we just did that ombre stenciling. Now, the Malarkey sentiment is from the new Malarkey die set. It just released today as well. And I just added a piece of dark green cardstock behind it and popped it up off the center to cover up that little area that we had. And you can't even tell now. I did finish this off with some gold pearls. So for my third card, this is the shaker card. And what we did was some inlay with our die cut piece. So I cut a panel using the wonky stitch die rectangle dies. I inlaid that die cut piece that we did into that and then created a shaker card using the This Calls for Confetti St. Patty's Day mix exclusive to Whimsy, and then added the little leprechaun hat is actually from that Malarkey die set, and then the St. Patrick's sentiment and banner is from last year's St. Patrick's gold stamp set, along with the happy stamped onto the hat. Now, my last card is my absolute favorite out of all that I did today. And I took my piece and added some black cardstock behind it with some double-sided tape on it. And then I added glitter over that to fill in the shamrocks. So those actually have this beautiful black glitter. in them, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Now, the Malarkey, of course, is from that Malarkey die set. I used the last year's St. Patrick's gold stamp set to do the shamrocks in the corner, my favorite FaDoodle frames to finish off with the little line of dots there. And that's going to wrap us up. Let me know what you think about the 3 must-try techniques using slimline background dies. Remember, you can use these techniques with any slimline background dies that you have. They're really easy to do. I hope you enjoyed the video. All the products are linked directly below for you. You know you can check them out in the Whimsy Stamps shop. And until next time, please take care.